blame game continues in D.C. And who knows, at the rate Congress is going, there might be a few fistfights next week. In a speech this week, President Obama talked about the debt ceiling deadline and told us that Warren Buffett likened default to a nuclear bomb, a weapon too horrible to use. Should the president really be trying to use these kinds of fear tactics on the American people? With me, conservative radio host Chris Plant from D.C., liberal radio host Leslie Marshall from L.A., and pollster Kellyanne Conway with me here in New York. All right, Chris, I'm going to start with you. You know, we've heard that Republicans are anarchists and terrorists, and they've got bombs strapped to their chest. What do you think of the president's tactics or lack thereof?
Well, I suppose it's a substitute for leadership. It's a substitute for adult behavior. It's a substitute for negotiating and compromising. It is, personally, honestly, and what my listeners are saying, this is reprehensible. It's unforgivable. It is poisonous.
But Chris, the problem is that the Republicans are indeed suffering in spite of what you say your, people listening to you think is reprehensible. How do you explain it?
Suffering in the polls, you mean?
Yes.
Well, yeah, they are, because, and the reason for that is that they're being called all of these things. You listed some of them: terrorists with suicide vests strapped to them, guns to the head, extortionists, arsonists, all this stuff. And the news media, our friends in the news media, carry this message forward, and enough of the American people who sort of get little bits of news every day are buying into it, that it's all the terrible Republicans' fault, while the Republicans have come up with offer after offer, compromise after compromise, and the president and Harry Reid continue to shoot them down, including yesterday.
But you know what,
more
Chris?
opportunities for
Chris,
compromise.
I got to tell you, with all due respect, I think everybody's tired of hearing about the other side. What they want to know, and I'll go to you, Leslie, is what can be done at this point, and can you talk about what Congress can do at not blaming each other?
Okay, well, that's kind of hard, because I think Chris and I just gear up for this every week, once or twice a week. But the reality is, and even though I am a progressive, liberal, proud Democratic talk show host, about 45% of my audience is conservative, and they even say enough is enough. What the Republicans can do, quite frankly, is stop the fragmentation and unite, as Democrats have over this recently. And both sides need, in the House and the Senate, to unite for the best interest of the American people. The bottom line is, these are separate instances. Chris, sorry, your guys wanted to defund Obamacare, and you got a government shutdown.
But so does the American public, Leslie. Don't even go over
Absolutely.
it. So now what do we do?
Absolutely. When you have China saying that we need to have a de-Americanized world, both left and right need to realize that we are their employers. We can vote them out left or right, and they have a responsibility to get their act together, to reopen the government, to raise the debt ceiling, and to move forward for the best interest of the American people. Do what they're elected to do.
Kellyanne Conway, I'm going to ask you now. Okay, the American public is fed up. The numbers are unbelievable now, and they can't blame each other anymore. I mean, have you ever seen the public, you're a pollster, as disgusted with Congress as they are now?
No, this is a new low, if you will. And I think that's because when you see this is a bipartisan indictment of chronic intransigence. You know, everybody owns this shutdown. This idea that I think the polls are silly when it says, who do you blame more? You have to ask that separately. How do you think the Republicans are behaving in this? How do you think the Democrats are behaving? Where is President Obama in this? And if you ask it separately, Judge, you see that everybody's numbers have fallen. Look, the president risks being seen as partisan and obstinate, which goes against his brand. Republicans are seen as imperiling maybe the 2014 House, which they don't want to do. The Democrats are seen as completely feckless.
As the guy who is going to unite us.
Yes.
And I don't know that we've ever been as divided.
I don't think we've ever been as divided, but we've also have rarely seen a president so disengaged. Some days I think he's more of a spectator than an active party. But let me just put it this way. You've seen these polls this week. They're a little comical, but you see that Americans have distaste for the Congress more than hemorrhoids or cockroaches.
Yeah, and I have that here.
I think the answer is that there's no over-the-counter remedy for
guys.
Congress.
And you know what? And that was what the tease was about. You know, that Americans think more of this six-legged cockroach than they do of Congress. And that's a real poll. And by the way, what do you have a higher opinion of, Congress or your mother-in-law? 64% said their mother-in-law. What do you have a higher opinion of, Congress or the DMV? They 60%, 58 said the DMV. Crazy. But Leslie, I'm going to ask you to listen to Democratic Senator Joe Manchin this morning.
Yeah.
Do Harry Reid, do President Obama, do they want to compromise or do they want surrender?
Well, I don't know what they want. They haven't detailed that enough for us. Leadership must lead, and basically we're in a crisis mode right now. We should not be here. There's no way it's acceptable for this government to be shut down. This is self-inflicted pain on millions of people. It's unnecessary.
All right, Leslie, he's a Democrat saying he doesn't even know what Harry Reid or the president want at this point. What do you say to that?
Well, I say that he has to take the wax out of his ears. It's very, very clear what they want, and I think it's what the American people want. They want a clean vote, and John Boehner has the votes. He was lying to the American people when he said he didn't.
No. We're not going there.
You know what, Leslie? They want a clean vote on reopening the government,
We're not going
and
there.
The Republicans are actually open to that now.
Let me tell you something. The bottom line is that when a senator criticizes the president and Harry Reid saying we don't know what my own party wants, he's in a position of suffering as a result of that. So, Chris, what do you think of his saying that?
Well, Joe Manchin is from time to time an honest man. I mean, that's what you've got to say about it, is that the Democrats' program is, what is the president's agenda? Honestly, what is the president attempting to advance here? To raise the debt ceiling? Is that his second-term agenda? To spend more, to get us more deeply into debt? It's actually to destroy the Republican brand. And they're both sinking. The president is at a new low with 37% approval rating for the president of the United States. The news media is completely avoiding that news. They're both drowning. The hope is that on the part of the White House and the Democrats is that the Republicans will drown first, and then the Democrats will declare victory.
Do you agree with that, Kellyanne?
It could happen. Look, the reason that, 4 out of 5 Americans are saying that they're not personally affected by the shutdown, but that's beside the point, because they hear tales of human suffering. They believe
Who
that this
suffers, the Republicans or Democrats in 2014?
There's 390 days before the election. I think that this will not be the issue going into next year's election. And I think if somebody tries to play
the disdain, do you agree with that, Chris?
There's so many states.
Oh yeah, I do. Yeah,
interesting.
This is all just madness. And by the time we get, that's 390 news cycles away before people are going to start focusing on.
It'll be
but
about
it is the Democrat plan.
You agree with that, Leslie?
Well, Judge.
Go ahead, Leslie.
Judge, I find it interesting that Kelly's job is in the polls, and the polls show that in 24 hotly contested districts in the United States, if the election were held today, Democrats would win, and these were states where the Republicans had it in the bag.
Yeah,
I totally disagree. I think the next elections are the Democrats are going to take it. We have 17 seats to get in the House, and honestly, I didn't think a few weeks ago that was attainable.
Folks. You know what I think? I think that it's time for maybe another kind of force to come in here. I think they're fed up with both sides. Chris, Leslie, Kellyanne, thanks so much for being with us this evening.
Thanks, Judge.
Thank you, Judge.